This past month, I read 7 young adult graphic novels, and today I'm sharing them with you. Whether you're drawn to coming of age stories, emotional depth, or simply beautiful artwork to inspire you, you might just find your next YA graphic novel to read. So the first book I want to share with you today is actually my favorite out of the bunch, and I also got the opportunity to meet the author and illustrator. And it's You and Me on Repeat by Mary Shine. You can see the fun little doodles she added when she signed my book. If you love time travel, in fact, I remember Mary mentioning being inspired by Back to the Future during her talk when I met her at that book event, then you might be interested in this book. It's based on 2 friends, and one of them in particular wishes that he could do over a specific moment, which happens to be his first kiss with his crush. And he wishes he can redo that moment and stumbles upon a portal and gets the opportunity to basically relive that day multiple times. So this book is about the 2 of them going through and reliving graduation day over and over. I love the theme. Time travel is always a fun subject in a book, and especially in a graphic novel book. I think it was done very well. I remember Mary mentioning she had to have like a spreadsheet to keep track of all the time loops and make sure that things were matching up as far as the story went. And one of the things that helps you follow along with all the various time loops is how she uses color. So each time there's another time loop, you'll see another color. Artistically, it's just really well done. Great use of color and texture, and of course, amazing drawings. This is one of those rare instances where I both enjoyed the story as well as the graphic novel art style. Doesn't always happen that way. Usually I might like the story, but not the illustration style, or maybe I love the illustration style, but there isn't really a good story there. So this one just came out in the middle of May, and I definitely recommend checking it out. The next one is Thieves by Lucy Byron. This is another one that I really loved both the story and the art. The story was really unique. As you might guess from the title of Thieves, there's an element of theft in this story, and one of the characters has a habit of stealing things, and so then the story becomes how they give these items back, and it's sort of like an adventure. So very different story, but the execution is amazing. Great use of color. There's limited color palettes, but it does shift a little bit depending on the context. Like some of the night scenes have darker color palettes, but there's a great use of color and texture and amazing drawings. So, I mean, these full page spreads are beautiful. What's awesome is there's 2 quotes from some notable graphic novel artists on the back. Alice Oseman said, "Such a sweet and funny story with complex, flawed characters that you can't help but love." And Tilly Walden, another favorite of mine, "A decidedly queer adventure full of heart, tension, beauty, and so much more." I always think it's cute to read love stories in young adult graphic novels because there's such an innocence to it. It's just a delightful read. This was a book I checked out at my library, and it came out in 2022. The next book, this was also another book I picked up at the library. It's called The Dark Matter of Mona Starr by Laura Lee Gullidge. I think I just randomly found this one on the shelf, and something about the title drew me in, and then once I read a little bit of the synopsis, I was more drawn in. What's the matter, Mona? Sometimes the world is too much for Mona Starr. She's sweet, geeky, and creative, but it's hard for her to make friends and connect with other people, and her depression seems to take on a vivid, concrete form. She calls it her matter. The matter seems to be everywhere, telling Mona she's not good enough and that everyone around her wishes she'd go away. But with therapy, art, writing, and the persistence of a few good friends, Mona starts to understand her matter and how she can turn her fears into strength. I am always so amazed at how deep and sometimes dark the subject matter of young adult graphic novels or young adult novels in general are. I always felt like some of these should be adult books. But I guess someone once told me that it has to do with the age of the character. So if the character is a teenager or a kid, then that dictates whether it will be a young adult. But I was drawn to it because, it's a serious matter about how this young girl deals with depression. And I thought it was interesting because the question, "What's the matter?" which was a question I always hated being asked as a kid and still do as an adult, but it's an interesting concept of the matter being depression and how Mona navigates through that and just feeling isolated and different from everyone else and like there's something wrong with her. So I really connected with that, and I wanted to see how the story would evolve and also how that would be depicted graphically. There's a lot of amazing full page spreads or just these really symbolic drawings of how she's dealing with the depression. So I think it was done very well. The style, while I think the themes were drawn very well, it's not particularly my favorite style, but I think it was symbolically represented very well and a great story. So I would definitely recommend checking this out if you're interested in themes of mental health and how those are depicted in a graphic format. This one came out in 2020, so it's about 5 years old now. Next is Hungry Ghost by Victoria Ying. This was another one I found at my local library. Valerie Chu is quiet, studious, and above all, thin. No one, not even her best friend Jordan, knows that she's been binging and purging for years. But when tragedy strikes, Val finds herself reassessing her priorities, her choices, and her body. The path to happiness may lead her away from her hometown and her mother's toxic projections. But first, she will have to find the strength to seek help. Again, another example of a young adult graphic novel with such an intense theme of binging, purging, just eating disorders in general. I've actually read a few young adult graphic novels on eating disorders, and there's a lot of them that are done really well, and this was another one I did enjoy. Great story and great art too. It has a limited color palette, mostly teal, purple, and pink, and it follows Valerie as she battles with her eating disorder and how there's a lot of friction with her mom because that's where it stems from, a lot of perfection, trying to be the perfect daughter, as it says here on the cover. So if you're open to reading a story based on eating disorders and how a young girl conquers that, then check this one out. The next one is Mish the Bad Demon by Michelle Lamb. This is another one I picked up from my local library, and it's actually the first of a 2-book series. This was classified under J Junior, so this is actually more of a middle grade for younger kids versus young adult, but I still wanted to include it. I found out about this one because Michelle Lamb is a YouTuber under the name Mew Tripled, and she shares a lot of things about her experience being in animation and creating her first 2 graphic novels, this being the first one. So I was curious to read her book. This confirmed to me that I'm definitely not that interested in middle grade graphic novel books, both reading and to create one day. I like young adult, but I'm definitely more drawn to adult graphic novels. But it's still a good idea to read outside of your comfort zone or what you think you will like, because you'll pick up on other things. One thing you'll notice about middle grade, younger graphic novels, it has a very particular style of drawing, again, that I'm not personally drawn to, but it's great for kids and keeping their attention. So it's in full color and it's got really cute characters. Mish, the main character, is a little demon and she goes on an adventure, meets a fairy, and it's got some great themes for kids about, different people coming together that have the wrong idea about each other, navigating those differences, working together towards a common goal. So it has a great storyline for kids. It doesn't take very long to get through it, maybe a half an hour. The font is quite large. It's a pretty simple story, but there's a lot of drawings in this. It's a very cute story, cute characters. If you are interested in younger graphic novels or you're just curious and you check out Michelle's YouTube channel and you want to learn more about her work, then check this one out. Next is The Rave by Jessica Campbell. And this is another book I found at the library that I just randomly picked up and decided to check out. I was intrigued by the color. I mean, these psychedelic interior spreads are really fun. Normally, this isn't the type of illustration style that I'm drawn to, this more simplistic, cartoony style, but I was curious to check out the story, and it's free from my library, so it doesn't cost me anything to check it out and read. It doesn't really have a synopsis. There is a quote from Tilly Walden on the back that says, "Reading Rave reminds me of the ways the days felt when you were a teenager. Terribly long and yet incredibly short. Jessica Campbell has captured the essence of being young and lost so completely that I know the story will stay with me for a long time to come. Read it and you won't forget it either." Again, I was surprised that this was considered young adult just because a big theme of teen pregnancy in it. Overall, the story was okay. I think what threw me off is even from the first page, there's a cross. So the whole religious undertones really turned me off because right away it jumps into a story of a preacher preaching away and in a judgy way about the teen pregnancy. There's also elements of suicide and just a lot of negative talk from the religious perspective. So it was very much a turnoff for me, but that is the point of the story because as you'll see at the end here, there's a scene of the main character walking out in the middle of church. So very much about her escaping that environment. So it does have an important lesson there. Wasn't my favorite, but if you happen to find it at your library, there's no harm in checking it out. Or if that's just something you're curious to read more about. And the last one, The Sad Ghost Club, A Hopeful Guide to Getting Through Bad Days. This is my own copy, and I actually ordered it directly from the author illustrator and purchased a signed copy, so you can see the customizations. She even drew a little ghost and a cat on it. The Sad Ghost Club is a series of books. I have 3 of the series. This isn't part of the series. This is like a standalone hopeful guide. But you can check out the Sad Ghost Club on Instagram, which I definitely recommend following it. A lot of fun, cute, inspiring mini comics and illustrations on the subject of mental health, depression, sadness, helping each other get through tough times. And it's always a joy of mine to see those illustrations and comics pop up on my Instagram feed. So this one isn't really a story, but more of a guide, and there's multiple chapters with different themes like getting through, that anxious feeling, not being sad, making friends, being there. It's okay to need support and doing things together. So it's more of a hopeful guide, as it says, tips on how to get through tough times and how to seek out support. It's not a sequential story. I will say all of the Sad Ghost Club books are in black and white. They're not the best quality. Like when you compare this to some of the other graphic novels, this is a much thinner paper, black and white copy. Kind of reminds me of a newspaper, like an upscaled newspaper. But I definitely recommend checking out the Sad Ghost Club in general on Instagram, and then also checking out the other books. Let me know in the comments, have you read or heard of any of these young adult graphic novels, or do you have a recommendation of your own? I'd love to hear about it. I do have other graphic novel videos here on the channel, so check out one of these next.